along to everyone who's made the time to come and join us today. We're really grateful that you've chosen to be here among all the other things that you could be doing. And I hope that you've got some lunch with you and a cuppa as we deep dive into our topic today on leading with empathy. Before I do that, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners and custodians of the land on which we're all meeting today in the different parts of the country, and pay our respects to all their elders past and present, as well as to the emerging leaders, and extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples who have joined us today. Um, if I was to poll everyone here today and ask them about their definition of empathy, we would all get quite a few different definitions. So I think what we'll do is we'll start by putting some definition around it so we've got some common understanding. But before I do that, Donnie, I think you've got a poll that you wanted to launch if you haven't already. And so, yeah, maybe, yeah, you've got that going. Awesome. So we've got a couple of polls that we're going to launch throughout the session today. Some of this information will be really helpful for us, and we're going to follow up at the end of today's session with an email to you all. We'll have some key insights in there, and we'll let you know what the results of those polls are as well. There should be some interesting insights there as well. And we want to encourage you all, if you have a question today, throw that into the Q&A, and myself and Donnie will keep an eye on that. We won't get to all the questions. We hope we're inundated. We won't get to all of them, but we'll make every effort to find some themes in there and follow up in our comms post the event as well. So throw your questions in there, and we hope to bring them into the conversation where it makes sense. So lovely. So as I was saying, empathy. What is this concept of empathy? It means very different things to different people. So within the context of what we're talking about today with leadership, let's talk about it as the ability to take on the perspective of another person, and then to expand on that even further in the leadership context. It's about deepening your understanding of the needs of another person, and then importantly, being able to take action. And I might get Donnie to expand on this a little bit as we get into some of the questions with the leaders that we've got here. But I really want you guys to just hold that definition in your mind, so that deepening your understanding of the people that you work with, and then being able to take action on that. And I think it's this capacity for empathy that we have. It's such a unique attribute of us as humans. And I think that's a really important point to make, because leaders and the people that they lead are all humans. But sometimes at work, with the pressure to achieve outcomes, the complexity of the problems that we face, and the uncertainty that gets created by all the change that's always going on, we can sometimes defer to styles of leading that don't place the emphasis on understanding the needs of others. Now, that doesn't make us bad people. It's not a character flaw. It is just the very nature of having to be a human being leading in such a complex environment, and we defer to styles of leaderships that may not always fit the situation and the person perfectly. So what we want to do today is we want to share some stories of some real stories of some leaders who we've got with us here today, who've been able to make some shifts in their leadership style by building a greater understanding of the needs of their people, and taking actions in ways that have improved the relationships that they have with them. And as a result, they've been able to help them been able to achieve better outcomes as well. So now that I've laid out the theme for today, hopefully that's got you all really interested. I can see we've got a question already that's come through. I'd like to introduce the real stars of today's show. So firstly, massive thanks to our partners here at Callo, of which I'm a director. My name's Sean McGinn, but a massive thanks to our partners at AP Psychology and the amazing Dr. Donnie Chaco. This man is a superstar. I think it's fair to say the amount of glowing feedback I've heard about Donnie in the time that we've been working with him is amazing. And he's here to help bring a little bit of a science behind some of the concepts we talk about and some of the stories that the leaders tell. Donnie, at any time, if there's something you'd like to contribute, just sing out and we'll bring you in. And then, of course, we wouldn't be here without our extra special guests, these wonderful leaders here from Entain, who it's fair to say is stepping out of their comfort zones a little bit today. Matt in particular, who's operating on London time. He flew in from London last night, and so he's running on coffee, he's told us. So, but Matt, you're looking fantastic. So, I mean, that's fantastic and a great start.
Cheers, Sean.
And we're really looking forward to hearing the stories from these guys today. So I'll introduce them. We've got Mitch Crane, contact center manager, Michaela Balmer, who I think I've pronounced the surname correctly, customer support lead, and of course Matthew Allen, manager of learning, quality, and talent, all joining us from Entain Group. So, without further ado, I think I think let's dive straight in, and I'm gonna start with you, Mitch. The way we're going to set up the discussion for everyone who's listening on is I'm going to get the leaders to talk about their big leadership challenge that they were facing before Donnie and I started working with them, and then we're going to start to unpack what shifted that for them. How did they unlock that big challenge they had, and what did they do, and what sort of changes have they seen both in themselves and their leaders, and what has that enabled for them as well. So Mitch, you're lucky first cab off the rank. Tell us what was your big leadership challenge coming into the program?
Thanks, mate. Yeah, look, before starting the program, I'd been a leader for about 2 years. I had a team 10 to 15, sort of fluctuated a little bit. Difficulty I found was really cutting through the weeds, and trying to understand what we needed to do to set or achieve a goal and then meet that goal. I had difficulty sort of getting to the root cause of the problems we were looking at. Often meant we were laying plans on uneven or rocky soil, which is
Mm,
what I wanted to challenge.
yeah. And why was that an important thing for you to focus on?
Mainly from the disconnect that created. Um, if you didn't, if I didn't have a proper understanding of where they were coming from, what they needed to achieve that goal, yeah, they weren't brought along for the ride.
Mm,
Um, they didn't feel a sense of trust in me if I didn't have that sense of trust in them. So it was really in all wanting to get them to grow inside their role, but they would need to have that trust and understanding between the two of us to do so.
yeah, amazing. So there's something really tangible there that around being able to help you and your team set and achieve goals, a really important part of the work, but also the what sits underneath that, which is building the trust so that you guys can achieve more together. I love that. That's a great one. Michaela, what about you? What was your big challenge coming in?
Hi, thank you. Um, I feel like because I had been in some sort of leadership position for most of my life in different industries, my biggest challenge at the time was trying to develop a really in-depth understanding of the different personalities that I was leading and what their needs were in terms of things like their goals, their KPIs, what opportunities they want to advance their career or where they want to go, even if it's in a different industry and a different sort of field. So just taking that time to figure it out was a little bit hard for me. And I found that whilst I find it quite easy to step into someone else's shoes and have that empathy for what they're going through, the way I was leading them might not be beneficial to their growth and their development, in that some people I might have been giving too much leeway for certain things, or I might not have been holding them as accountable as I should be. And therefore, they weren't able to sort of grow from where they were, I suppose.
Mm, mm. Fantastic. And great awareness there too already on being able to see how um, the differences that in the people in your team, the differences that they needed, how your leadership style wasn't always matching that for them. So that's fantastic. Thank you. And then Matt, how about you? What was your big challenge you were looking to work on?
Yeah, I found myself having a lot of difficult conversations with um, certain employees under me, but I had this belief that if having the style of conversation that I was having, providing honest feedback, etc., would cause like disengagement between me and my team members. So I was always seeking opportunity to soften the blow and making them feel better in the conversation instead of trying to be more direct. And I think another part of that, I was spending a lot of time thinking about myself. I came into a leadership position with no prior training, so I had those self doubts. I was second guessing, how I was managing people, how I was having conversations with them, and I I could see this was kind of handicapping my development as a leader, and also my ability to develop them and their full potential. So yeah, that was probably one of the biggest challenges at the time.
That's a good one. Hey, Matt, your video has gone off, at least for me. I can't see it. I'm not sure about anyone else, but there you are, back.
Magic.
Good to see you. Yeah. So that's a great one, Matt. So I think, probably everyone who's here can relate to that internal talk, that self-talk sometimes that you hear, that voice of doubt that comes over, especially when you're having difficult conversations with people, that makes you question whether you're doing everything that you can or should have done. So I love that. I think that's again, it's a great level of awareness, and your ability to relate that back to a belief that you had as well, I think, is a really important one, because we talk a lot about how some of those beliefs that we have can be limiting. They all serve a purpose. There is a strength and there is a purpose to all the beliefs that we have, but sometimes they show up in ways that can really limit our ability to both understand ourselves and where we come from, but also understand the needs of our people as well. So that's great. Thanks, Matt. Nice one. Well, I think the first poll's going really well. Thank you very much. Donnie, is there anything we want to talk about with the poll right now, or are we're gonna save all that good stuff for later? Lovely. Cool. All right. Brilliant. Donnie, I might just throw to you, based on what you've just heard there from the guys, is there anything you'd like to add at this stage?
No, I think that's great there, and lovely listening to your stories there, Michelle, Matthew, and Michaela there, about how you've sensed that, right? And that's that difficult definition of empathy we talk about, when you're starting to see your team members and you're like, you know what, I want to help them, I want to support them, and that's that ability to understand and share their feelings and experiences. And you're saying, you know what, I feel what you're going through. Like Matthew said, I didn't have any prior experience, you came, but you were going back to some of those feelings that you had when you were, looking for that leadership. So that's that empathy element there, and that's that crucial part that enables people to feel that they are heard and acknowledged. And I often talk about empathy as that starting step to the next step, or what we call is compassion. And oftentimes empathy in itself, right? So you're feeling, and that can lead to us going through the feelings of that individual, but can also lead to us experiencing a lot of burnout because we're just feeling there in that sense. And that's where, as leaders, we call about compassion that comes into, which is really understanding the feelings of that individual and then saying, hey, what can we do something about this for you? This really is going back to the individual saying, I can see this is impacting you in such a way. What can I do to support you? And right. And so that's that action element. And that's where compassion comes into being. So when you're compassionate as a leader, you're seeing them for who they are. And then you're bringing together, what can we do as leaders to support you? That really enables them now to feel heard, acknowledged, but also knowing that my leader is doing something about what I'm doing. And I'm sure as we go through, we'll unpack more of that compassion element of how you've been working through with your teams as well.
Lovely. Yeah, I really like that, Donnie, that I think many of the people on the webinar today could probably relate to feeling stuck in situations with people when they open up and they start sharing their feelings or what's going on for them in their lives, and then a feeling of stuck. What do I do from here? How do I take that compassionate action to move forward? So that's a brilliant segue into the next part of the discussion. And Mitch, I'll come back to you. So Mitch, you talked about you being able to cut through the weeds and being able to get into really effectively understand the problems and set goals with your team and also for yourself. Can you talk to us a bit about what unlocked that for you? What happened that really helped you to make some headway with that goal?
Yeah, absolutely. Quite simply, Sean, you took me through the GROW model. I've applied that to just about everything, from these specific instances of challenges with my team out to project-based stuff in my personal life. Not as much hitting every single point of that, goal, reality, options, will, but taking any challenge that I've got, be that personal with a team member, through each of those phases, gives a really, really clear picture of, what is our goal? Where are we at right now? What is available for us to do? Out of those things, what are we going to choose to do? And then how are we going to be accountable for that? It seamless. If any of my team are on here, they're probably sick of hearing about it, but hitting those points and putting that all down on a page, did cut through the weeds for me. So it was presented really clearly of the situation we're in and our plan to go forward.
Yeah, yeah. And what was it about that was helpful? Was it the structure of it? Can you tell us a bit more about why that really resonated with you as much as it did?
Yeah, it was the structure certainly helps, I think, just for a person with a brain like mine. I believe the element that was most beneficial was I could bring them along for that journey, like take them through those steps. So we're doing that together. It doesn't appear like I'm saying, this is your goal, this is what you're going to do, and this is how you're accountable for it. We're doing it together and we're hitting those steps. So they see that I've got a clear approach and a plan that we're putting together, the two of us. They feel like they're really a part of that journey, so they're going to open up a lot more with me.
Yeah, so you're asking questions. I think through those questions, you're deepening your understanding of the problem and the needs that your team have. It's inherently like a very empathetic process that you go through. And I love that, and I think that I love the way that you've adapted it as well. It's not exactly the same as the model, but you've been able to use it also in a way that's comfortable for you, which is so important as a leader to be able to use it authentically so that it works. But I love that you're using it across different areas as well. You're talking about using it in your personal life and project work that you're doing, but also with your team. I'm really curious though, we've obviously spoken about this prior, so I don't know where this is going, but I'm really curious how that conversation model has had an impact on the relationship that you've had with your team. Because I mean, just asking open-ended questions is one thing, and giving them a chance to think about that is another. But what has it meant for the relationship that you've got with your team now?
So we've benefited from, like, in that conversation, I'm listening to understand and listening from a point of trust. So I'm bringing that question up. Here's the goal. Here's what we want to achieve. What are you thinking? I'm then thrown to them and giving them the space to speak openly, nodding along, not interrupting them, not trying to spoon feed them what I think they're saying, which is making them far more comfortable in being honest in those discussions, where previously we might have set a goal and some targets that worked for me, didn't work for them so much. Since having those, the conversations that are building a lot more trust, we're getting a lot more genuine conversation, which is, putting us towards that goal, a whole lot quicker and with a lot more focus rather than the open-ended stuff previously.
Yeah, yeah. And tell us a bit about that making that transition. What was the experience like for you, shifting from, reaching in and solving the problems or being directive to sitting back and being more kind of inquiring about it?
Yeah, it was gradual. And from, coming from a point where you're quite involved, it was a conscious decision I had to make to pull myself back. Initially, obviously, a little bit tentative when you're sending that trust out when you haven't previously. But I found the guys absolutely rallied to it and met that expectation. So it was a transitionary period and tough initially, but as soon as I saw them come back and meet that trust for me, I was comfortable moving forward and slowly shifting more and more stuff into a collaborative effort rather than just myself.
Yeah, yeah. And there's something you've touched on there is that you it was gradual and starting to use that framework and building that trust. I think over time you start to see that what comes back, and I think what you've shared is your team have started to use this framework now, and they're starting to come to you with their thoughts on the answers to those questions before you've even started. So I think you're starting to see the evidence from your team that works too, which is a really nice, positive, reinforcing cycle. Tell us a bit more about that, because I think you've seen some great shifts in your team leaders since you've made this shift yourself. So yeah, tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, certainly. I'm hoping none of them are on here because they might catch me out, but I'm not even sure that they would know that they're following this process. Effectively, like, things used to come to me with, what am I doing here? And then over a couple of months, sort of since taking on this model, really adapting it, I didn't deliver it to them that I was doing it this way. They've just sort of noticed that's how we step through things. And now I've seen those things that used to be escalated to me with what do I do is now escalated with, here's where I'm at, here's what I'm thinking, and here's how I'm going to govern that. They might not even know they're executing it that way, but it's naturally gone through the team, which is then making them have more trustworthy conversations with their team, and they're building their own their confidence on that front. So yeah, fantastic to see it coming back from them in the same fashion.
That's great. So that framework and that approach from you sort of relinquishing a little bit of like control and empowering them to navigate their way through those investigative questions is really empowering them to own their teams more. I think that was something we spoke about. You felt like you were reaching in, whereas now you're able to let them take over a lot more control and ownership over their team.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, amazing. That's fantastic, Mitch. Well done. Congratulations. I mean, it's no small feat to make that kind of a shift. I talked at the beginning of the session about certain leadership styles that that people can default to in environments that we see in operations, like that typical environment of being fast-paced, lots of change, pressure on KPIs, pressure from senior management or from customers to meet certain needs and obligations. And it can naturally push leaders into a more command and control leadership style, where there is a sense that if I take more control, if I defer to more control, then it'll give me a greater sense of safety, speed, urgency, bias to action, all those kinds of things. And I think what you've done really, I think, bravely in some ways, is defer to a type of leadership style which it actually defers to a way of leading which puts the control into the hands of your team, which is really where it should be. And so I think that's to be commended, because it's not always easy to do. It's not always easy to do it all. So well done. And I'm gonna throw to Michaela now, because I think that's a really good segue. At least I'm going to say it's a segue anyway for you, Michaela, because there was something that was really quite pivotal for you in the program, which I think enabled you to empower your teams more. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so the biggest thing that really unlocked everything for me was there was a video included called Turn the Ship Around. And essentially it is about a naval captain. He got moved on to a submarine he'd never worked on before, didn't know anything about what to do, how it worked, nothing. And he basically had to go in, and they expected him to be the normal naval leader that they are, tell everyone what to do, when to do it, how to do it, and how often to do it. But he's come on and he's gone, I don't do any of this. None of this is my job. This is these people's job. And I need to learn from them. How do I do it? And then I'm just going to flip it back and I'm going to be their boss. Like it didn't make sense to him. And that sort of grabbed me quite intensely, because the way he ended up doing was he learned everything from his team. And then he basically just said, all right, well, you know what you're doing. You just do what you need to do. Tell me if you need me, but other than that, just do what you need to do. I'm here, but ultimately you guys run the ship. I'm just the boss. Like, and I think when I brought it back to what I was doing in the leadership role I was in at the time, we kind of get stuck at this like higher level of these are the KPIs we need. This is how we're going to get there. And this is ultimately what we're going to get when we get there. But a lot of that breakdown in between of how the operators actually get us there was kind of missed. And I felt that my team was just going through the motions. They weren't necessarily trying to get anywhere for the future. And I essentially sent them all this video, gave them a rundown, and I said, this is how our team's going to work now. You guys do the bulk of the customer work, and I support you as your leader. However, ultimately, you guys are doing the work. So why do I need to be the one to tell you when, how, and why to do it? I'm just going to give you the information that I need you to know, and then you guys can fill me in on the rest. And it really changed my whole team in terms of how they were performing, their engagement, just feeling valued as well. Like it was, this is what I want from you. I know you can do it. And yeah, they all really, really went on to excel after that.
Amazing. And so what a vote of confidence for your team. And I'd love for you to tell us a bit more about what changes you made to support that, because it wasn't just hands off the steering wheel and and the kind of the car goes wherever it goes. You really thought about your leadership style with your team. So can you tell us about what you did there?
Yes, as I mentioned earlier, I've pretty much been in some sort of leadership role my whole working life. And for most of it until this training and development, I thought, okay, well, I'm good at leading. I've always done it. I've never had any issues leading. But when I did this program, it made me realize that whilst I may have one really good leadership style that works for me and I enjoy leading in that way and it gives me a sense of purpose and fulfills my needs, my leadership style may not fit all of my staff, and it most likely doesn't. They all need, a different catered approach, I suppose. And that comes down to personality, learning style, and so many different things as to what they need from their leader. And for me, it was about stepping back and going, whilst I might like leading from one particular place, that isn't going to benefit everybody. And I need to be able to step into other leadership styles, even if it's just temporarily to handle or help one person. It's harder to explain now that I'm thinking about it, but being able to step into another leadership style is more valuable than honing in on one and being really great at it.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's such a great point, and again to sort of reaffirm what I said at the start, one style, it has its place, but only in certain situations. If you're applying that style to every situation, you're going to have limited impact. And I think that it's also going to impact the relationship we have with your team, because it's, as you've highlighted, you needed to learn about what worked for everyone and then adapt your style to those people, whether they had a different learning style, they were more numbers focused, or whether they needed to be shown how to do things, whatever it might have been. You've been able to adapt that style. So when you show up, you're showing up in a way that actually works for that particular situation and that person. So I think that's fantastic. And really practical how you've taken what I think you saw in that video, how someone role modeling a different way and how that has unlocked something for you, but then you've been able to take very practical steps in order to empower your team through the way that you're leading them differently. So that's fantastic. We have a question in the chat, and I think that question is so beautifully timed, because I'm about to throw to Matt. I think Matt's going to help answer this question for us. But before I do that, hey Donnie, is there anything you'd like to add here? I'm hearing a lot about trust being built, particularly through what Mitch said. So yeah, is there anything you can add here around trust and how that gets built?
Yeah, I think the key element, and both of them, Michaela and Mitch, were trying to talk about how, one of the key elements is interacting with them and getting to know what the people are thinking, right? So, and I really loved what Mick you were sharing there. You said, I went to them and said, you know your job, right? And here's what, I want to learn from you. I want to see what you're doing best and then to empower you there. So that's that leading with curiosity, is to say, I'd like to know what you're doing, right? And that's the key element of building trust. When somebody, and have you always noticed that when somebody asks you, for example, what do you do, right? And people say, okay, they often give a title or stuff, but they say, no, what do you actually do? You feel encouraged to share and tell that whole story, right? And that's exactly what happens to build that trust. When you get people to say, and when your leader does that, to say, I'd like to know how you're doing, and people feel that, okay, you know what? This person wants to get to know me, not just, what I'm doing, but what exactly I'm doing. And that enables that trust. So that first element there is leading with that curiosity, which enables people to feel heard and want to belong, and say that, okay, this person wants to get me, and then is to having those continued conversations and picking up on what they are saying. And Mitch shared that as well, and we was talking about, as he was trying to talk to them, getting them expectations. So that kind of feedback and looping that, and then acknowledging that, asking those open questions to say, tell me more about that. Those are those things that enable people to feel that they can be trusted, and that, as my leader wants to know me, wants to know where I am, and is regularly kind of checking in on me. So I think that's kind of there's building blocks for building that trust there, Sean.
Yeah, amazing. And Donnie, how important is it to do that consistently over time?
Now, and this is the key thing there, right? Is that oftentimes when we do that consistently, we're also setting up what I call as a baseline, right? We get to know, and oftentimes in that first meeting, in that second meeting, people might not be because they're still building that trust. They're still seeing, can I really get to trust this person? Is that person there? But as we start to have this consistent, regular, meaningful check-ins, what it really does is enables people to feel, okay, I know that this is part of our regular schedule. My manager really checking in on what's going on with me and having that conversation. Then slowly they say, I think I can open up with this to my leader. I can actually share this because I know that it's a curious question. This person's open. They're not judging me. They really want to support me. So that having that creates that baseline and also enables to ongoing build that trust because the person might not have a challenge at that very moment. But if you're having those regular check-ins, you can pick up on those very early when that starts to shift, when there's starting something not right, that baseline starts to change, and that's when you can intervene. And that early intervention really changes how that interaction takes place and how you're supporting that individual there. So that's having those consistent check-ins is very important.
Yeah, amazing. And I think key element of trust is that predictability of behavior over time between you and the people that you're leading. That
That's
people
right. Yeah.
you're being led by are looking for that predictability of how you behave over time. Donnie, I'm going to come back to you later because I want to unpack trust a bit more, particularly this concept of psychological safety and how that help support high performance. So Jovan, your question is awesome about how can leaders have empathy and be accountable / firm at the same time. So Donnie, I think we can unpack that through psychological safety and high performance. But Matt, I'm going to go to you now because your particular challenge that you had was around having difficult conversations. And so Matt, can you just talk us through what kind of shifts you made that helped you with that particular challenge? And I think this will help go to answer Jovan's question as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think the big shift for me was like I was focusing a lot on myself and you know just questioning whether I was doing the right things in the conversation and asking the right questions. So I made that big shift from moving away, focusing on myself, instead just being more curious about what my team members were experiencing and what challenges they were facing, how they were managing themselves, and how I could support their growth. So I was putting more energy into them rather than second guessing me. So so how that looks was for me, how it looked specifically behavior wise was, I slowed down, I listened for longer. I like to think my wife would agree with me on that, and she notices that at the moment. But I kind of sit in that silence. I don't jump straight into the solutions, fixing things like I used to, and probably to a small part I still do. But with my team, I ask like open investigative questions that help them explore the issue and come to their own conclusions. Before I would have taken the first response and acted on face value and rushed into a solution. And now, myself and my team, we build more context around the problem, and sometimes even uncover like limited beliefs that they have or assumptions that are holding them back. And that's a shift I could only make once I learned how to do that myself. So yeah, once again, I really slowed down, sat in that silence, asked the right questions, got some more context, and yeah, it was therapeutic for me, but it was I found it really positive, and there were really positive conversations with my team members that once again it can be a slow start, but every conversation after that just felt more natural and more beneficial for my team members especially.
Yeah, amazing. Matt, I'm curious about that silence. Tell us about what sitting in silence feels like when you're trying to use that as a way to create the space for the person you're talking to?
Yeah, I mean, personally, I hate that silence. It would be like 5 seconds, and I would felt like I had to jump in. I don't know. I did feel like it was the right thing to do to kind of fill those gaps and not make it awkward. But what I was doing was I was building this kind of behavior where they would expect me to jump in. They would expect me to potentially come up with a solution, or, or something to help them find their own solution. So sitting in that silence, literally, it's sitting in that period where you get them to think, and for me, it's telling them that they they're not just going to wait for me. I'm really expecting them to think critically about whatever issue that they brought up, or what goal that they're trying to achieve. You know, Giving them that really safe space to go, hey, I'm here. I'm actually happy to sit here in a bit of silence, a bit of awkwardness, to give you some time to think about, that any solutions or problems, or just brainstorming ideas. So it is literally what it is. Like it says, so it's sitting in that silence, being a little bit awkward, staying a bit more curious. So yeah, that's what I found.
Yeah. Yeah, amazing. It's very powerful. I heard once someone say, what you do, like in the context of leadership, what you do for someone, you take away from them. So, I mean, if you think about it like that, if you are filling those silences yourself, or if you are intervening and giving the solutions, you're taking that opportunity away from the person that you're leading. And I think, Matt, what you have found is that it switches on a part of someone's brain. Or you think about it the other way, if you're constantly filling the silences and jumping in and providing the solutions, people just switch that creative part of their brain off. And why wouldn't they? If that's the pattern that they're accustomed to, they're not going to bring all their productivity and creativity into that conversation. So I love that power of silence. And I'm going to, without notice, I'm going to throw to Mitch and Michaela, and I would love to hear your experiences with sitting in silence as well, and how that's worked for you guys.
Couldn't agree more. I found it a very useful tool, if I felt I wasn't really getting to the bottom of something, where again, I hate it and it feels awkward, but getting a response, posing a question, getting a response. If I have a suspicion there's more to that response, I'm just going to give you an understanding look, and I'm sitting in silence. Because one of us is going to fill that silence. If they fill the silence, they're going to give me more of the answer that I want. Yeah, very awkward practicing it initially, but once comfortable, like the things that come up once you have that understanding, you've built a bit of that trust, and you give them the room to start speaking, you'd be amazed what'll come out.
Awesome. Thanks, Mitch.
Yeah, look, I
Mick?
have to agree. In
Mm.
the beginning, it was so hard to do. I think because, yeah, you just want to avoid that awkwardness. But overall, like it allows my team to think more deeply. And again, my whole ethos was I'm putting the trust in my people, and I'm letting them do their job, and just letting them know what I need from them in terms of my role, and giving them what they need in terms of different leadership styles. But I found sitting with that silence also gave time to like diffuse, especially in those difficult conversations, like the ones we really don't want to have but have to have. It just there may have been tension, and if people keep talking and talking and talking, it then the tension just continues to build. Where if there is that little, area of peace and quiet and being able to think through the thoughts, it can diffuse all of that as well. And I just found that my team ended up being more self-sufficient because they were given time to respond, instead of me jumping back in and trying to prompt a response that maybe I was expecting, but they weren't heading towards. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a powerful. Someone also said to me once, silence does a lot of heavy lifting, or let silence do a lot of heavy lifting. And I think it really can in a conversation. And I think Matt, you probably didn't touch on it, but well, I think you did touch on it, but I think there's there are certain conversation frameworks that you can use to help you that can guide you through difficult conversations to use silence in a really effective way as well. I think you guys have all shown how you can do that so well, but also overcome the own discomfort you feel about silence. I think that's the big thing here, is to be able to overcome that for yourself, and then you get to see how much more empowering that is, and that just becomes the fuel to keep doing it. So well done. Danny, I'm going to throw to you. Sorry, Donnie, I'm going to throw to you. We actually have a question, an audience request for Donnie to answer one. I'm going to read it out. So when you have a team member who is not suited to the job, how can you stay curious/silent and allow them to come up with responses and or display empathetic connection without casting judgment or solutions based, I think it should be based on your responses? Yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's a great question there, right? So, you feel somebody who's not suited to the job, how can you still be curious and silent and allow them to come up with responses without that? So now, I think I'll just step back a bit about why we do this, right? Now, the reason our brains jump into judgment is because we've so focused on, I want to sort this out quickly, right? So we want to get to the fastest answer first. Now, it might not be the best answer, but it's the fastest answer, and it gives us a sense of surety. I've done something, right? And that's why we are quick to judge. So when somebody's talking about a problem, our brain's running about 100 miles an hour, trying to get about, okay, this is what you should be asking. This is what they're going through, just trying to, and our brain works that way. It predicts what's going to happen next. And so we're having these ultimate, this amazing solutions come up to kind of look at that. Now, what gets missed in that picture is what the other person is actually going through, because we're so focused on coming up with, why is this happening, right? So that's where we need to suspend judgment. And the way we can do that is by being curious about saying, tell me about what really is, what really challenges you. What are some things that keep you excited on the job? Or what are some things you look forward to here? So the person might not be suited to the job, but there could be also reasons why they may not be suited to the job. And that might be surprisingly different to different people. So sometimes you might feel that, okay, they're not able to do this job because this job has a lot of these things here, but they might not be in the right mindset because they still feel there is no connection between them and the job. And that's what we want to explore by being curious. So when you do ask that question about, what is it that works for you? How is it that, tell me some of the times where you felt really great in the work you did, maybe in a previous role, in a previous job, in a previous position. And what you're really getting there is trying to go beyond what they're also showing as their side to what ticks there. So that's the curiosity that enables you to understand how best. And sometimes that conversation can lead to a very interesting outcome where we really find out that, yes, that's not suited here. And that's really then saying, hey, what's the next plan, how we can move there? But most of the times what it unpacks is, it's not really the job that's the mismatch. It's some of those fundamentals. And as Mick and Mitch, you shared, right? It's about them figuring out what they want, what is their path, and what aligns best for them. And that's what, as a leader, you can then challenge them to go into. So I think that's where we really are suspending that judgment so that we can start to understand what is it that enables them to be themselves or bring out the best in themselves, right? And as you listen more about that, you'll start to see that, okay, this is why this person is feeling like this about this job. So you see, there's a lot of those this that comes out, and that's that curiosity. And what that allows you to do is, when you're suspending judgment, your brain's also working in another part here, right? Your brain's you can only do one task at a time. And so when you're suspending judgment and you're trying to be curious, you don't have time to actually say, this is why this is happening. You're like, okay, tell me more. And why is that? And why do you feel about that way? And what is that makes you here? So you're constantly seeking to know. And so you don't have the bandwidth to be judgmental. And that element of that process itself enables the other person to feel, you know what, this person really wants to bring out the best in me. So even though I'm holding back here, let me, let go a little bit. And that's when they open up with the reality they require. And so that could be possibly how we start to, build that relationship. Yeah. I hope that, kind of brings in a context there.
Yeah, that's so good. And I think we got another question in the chat from Kim. I hope that's helped a little bit there. You got a tough challenge there ahead of you, but I hope that helps you with some ways forward. So before we go to some last question I've got for everyone. Donnie, can I come back to you on that that question around trust and psychological safety? And so maybe for people who don't know, I mean, what does psychological safety mean in this context? And then can you maybe talk to us about how that is a really important aspect of high performing teams?
Yes, so I'll go back to a very interesting experiment that Google did in 2012. They launched a project called Project Aristotle, which is a multi-year, multidisciplinary approach into understanding what makes high-performing teams at Google, right? And they got a star-studded cast of people and researchers. Adam Grant was one of them, trying to go through the data, and they surveyed 180 teams across about 1,000 different data points. And the end of it, what they concluded at that study is that they use both qualitative and quantitative methods, and they find out 5 core dynamics that enable high-performing teams. And number one on that was psychological safety. Right? So high-performing teams are built when they feel that they're psychologically safe in the workplace. So it's a shared belief that team is safe from taking risks. They feel comfortable sharing ideas. They are open to admitting mistakes and also challenging each other without fear. So that's the interpersonal dynamics of psychological safety in the workplace, right? So that's that element of that individual element. And I also talk about psychological safety is not just that individual element, but also from a work organizational element. So it's a place where people feel that they are, their mental well-being is supported, that they are also psychological risks that are enabled in the workplace are minimized, and a place where people feel that they can come to work safely. So that's the overarching definition of psychological safety. So if you can think about it, what does that break down into the elements, right? One, people are not afraid to make mistakes because they know that they can grow with that. They're calling out things that can go wrong because it's a place where they feel that they will not have fear or retribution of what they call out there. And they also want to take more risks because they're not afraid to fail, because that's okay, because they're pushing each other to grow forward. So that's the element of psychological safety that is crucial to teams. And if you go back to what Matthew Mitch and Michaela have been doing, with their examples there, as well as they're giving that environment where their team members feel that it's safe to speak up. They feel safe to open up, to share, and that regular check-ins that they're doing, using that approach of the grow model there, all of that brings in that element where their team members feel that, I'm not alone in this place. This is a place where I feel supported. I'm acknowledged. I'm heard. I can actually talk, share, bring up, and also this is all done in the spirit of me becoming my best version. I'm being led on to becoming here, and I'm not interfered on or checked on for the sake of is work happening, but more important, are you growing as an individual? And that element, that's what creates that psychological safety in workplaces.
That's a great summary, Donnie. And just going back to some of the questions that we've had in the chat, I think the responsibility or accountability that as leaders we want our team members to have. I mean, it's a critical building block is that empathy, deepening your understanding of the needs of that other person, so they can kind of shape their own path forward, whatever that is, whether it's to achieve a KPI, a goal, a career ambition, whatever it might be. They naturally will have a greater sense of responsibility for that. And so they will hold themselves accountable, and even better if they fail to meet it through, naturally you just don't achieve all of your goals in the first go. They are more likely to want to persevere with the support that you can provide them to stay curious. So I think it's a really great way to describe that. So let's start to move things, to wrap things up. I'm going to throw back to our leaders here, and I've got a question for them. What's your one piece of advice to all the folks that are with us today? And Mitch, I'm going to start with you.
On the spot. Look, I summed it up essentially what I took out of this course. Boiled it down into trust breeds trust. If your team members can feel supported, trusted, understood, you can do that by putting your prejudice, any preconceived notions of the situation at the door and just taking them for their word. They're invariably going to meet you in the middle. People want to respond to the trust with commitment. I had a kicker on top of that I didn't share with you earlier, Sean, but it's sort of come up through, we've been talking. Reminding them, well, I've done it with the towels, reminding them that we're all human, that like, yeah, we all have a role to play and a job to do, certain things we need to fulfill. But at the end of the day, I'm coming to you as a person who is looking to achieve my job, and you're a person looking to achieve your job. And if we work together and do that, we're both going to be happy. Removing the thought that a discussion from your manager is always a negative. You can be having a negative conversation in a positive way.
Amazing. What a way to finish this off with a takeaway. That's so good. Trust breeds trust. I love it. Michaela, what about you?
I think the biggest one for me would be leaving your ego at the door when you do any sort of training like this. And ultimately, you're already a leader. You're going into this training to become a better leader. And you may feel like you're a great leader and you don't do anything incorrectly or in a bad manner currently, but you will still find something valuable if you leave the ego at the door and are willing to just take it for what it is, and find your own interpretations of how it's going to benefit the work that you're doing with your team.
Amazing. Love that one as well, Michaela. It's all about your team, and obviously your needs are important, but being able to create some self-awareness around that. Awesome. So good. Thank you. And Matt, what about you?
Probably not do a webinar the day after coming back from overseas, but no. Genuinely, probably centered around what I was talking about before, but my limited belief led me to avoid the tough conversations. So my advice would be, don't avoid the tough conversations. There might be internal dialogue, like stories that we tell ourselves, like which is usually like bigger and scarier than the reality. And as long as you prepare well, we've spoken about staying curious and focusing on the other person as well as yourself. I think those conversations don't damage relationships; they actually strengthen them. Um, so I suppose instead of asking and what I used to do is, what if this conversation goes wrong? Turn that around and just think like, what if this conversation helps them to grow and understand and build a better relationship? So that shift in mindset, I think, changes everything.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think you guys are absolutely nailing it, and doing the things that sometimes feel counterintuitive to do, that feel risky to the relationship. And you've all leaned in and done the things that really stretch you beyond how you currently believe things might play out, and where you've just been able to really grow as leaders and get the most out of your people as well. So that's amazing. Great question from Tim about a course we're referring to. Give us a minute. We will come to that, Tim. Matt, could you also share some results? Because you guys actually have been tracking some of your people results over the course of the last year or so. Would love for you to share those with us and a bit of context as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So we saw a 3% improvement in UPAs, who are unplanned absenteeism. 33% improvement in our attrition. By the way, this is not an increase in both. This is obviously a decrease in improvement, and a 9% improvement in our employee engagement scores. And Sean, as much as I'd love to say this is all the result of the leadership program, it's obviously not solely due to it, but it was super beneficial. We know there's other variables that can contribute to this data and these results, but we saw improvements in a lot of like the foundation capabilities of our leaders. So we had a lot of people starting their leadership journey. So those skills around communication, having difficult conversations, and how working on their beliefs and self-awareness improves how they show up every day. And it also made them more curious about what their teams needed. Without those improvements in those foundational leadership capabilities, we're pretty confident that we wouldn't have been able to achieve the results that we did. So,
Fantastic.
really great improvements there. Yeah,
that's awesome, and thank you for sharing those. Well, what how quick an hour can go. Well done to Matt, Mitch, and Michaela. And Donnie, I think we might have lost Donnie, or if is Donnie still there? No, there he is. Thank you so much to Donnie for your expert comments. Thanks for all the time and effort that you guys have put into preparing yourselves for the program today, or sorry, for the webinar. It's been amazing. Loved to hear your stories again. It's always so fulfilling for me to talk to leaders that have been through the program that we run and to share the stories. It's enormously rewarding, endlessly rewarding as well. So with that said, if anyone who's here would like to learn more about the program that the guys have been talking about, head to calloconsulting.com.au. You'll find all the information that you need about the program. And if you'd like to book in some time to have a chat with me, would love that too. I will also be sending out a email to everyone who's come along with a little bit more information about the program as well, and some of the key insights and takeaways. So look out for that as well. And Donnie, what would you like to end us on?
Yeah, and as we were talking about, I've come from AP Psychology and Consulting Services. That's psychology-consulting.com. Just Google AP Psychology and Consulting Services, and we've been enabling workplaces to the prevention of harm, protection, and support of psychological health and safety in the workplaces through assessing their risk levels and then providing the training for leaders to empower themselves and the organization to ensure that they are psychologically safe in the workplace. So head on to psychology-consulting.com to get a bit more about how we can best support you and your organization to be psychologically healthy and safe.
Amazing. Great way to finish. Thanks so much, Donnie. All right. Well, massive thank you to everyone that's come along today. We appreciate you making the time to share part of your day with us. I hope that you guys have all taken something away. I hope we've been able to unpack empathy for you, what it looks like in practice, this sort of really nebulous subject and topic, and how actually it is being empathetic is not an overhead to being a leader. It's actually an integral part of being able to achieve really great outcomes. So would love to be able to connect with everyone. Find us on LinkedIn, both for myself and Donnie. Head to our websites to learn more about us as well. So thank you so much to everyone, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Sean.
See ya.
All right, it's there. Leaving it.
Oh, well, there you go, Donnie. All wrapped up.
All wrapped up. Thank you, Sean. That was fantastic. That was great.
Thank you.
Powerful there. That's lovely there. So I think we'll catch up later. And
yeah, let's
okay.
debrief later on.
Right. Thank
All
you.
right, mate. Take care. See you later.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.